Good evening. My name is Yifan Wu, Senior Director of Event Operations at the Museum of Chinese in America. It is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's virtual conversation about identity, cuisine, and motherhood, featuring cookbook authors Cathy Erway, Sarah Leung, and Clarissa Wei, moderated by author and professor Michelle T. King. Beloved memory of mom or grandma's home cooking are an inedible part of identity for many Asian Americans. But what happens when you become the parents? Tonight, we'll hear from Kathy, Sarah, and Clarissa about how their experiences with home cooking have evolved. Has motherhood changed the way they approach the kitchen? What values shape how they want their children to eat? How has becoming a mother influenced their understanding of their own Chinese or Taiwanese identity? And as working moms, how do they navigate the balance between home and career? For those joining us who may be less familiar with our guest speakers, I would love to briefly introduce them. Cathy Erway is a James Beard and IACP award-winning food writer and author of The Food of Taiwan, Sheet Pan Chicken and the Art of Eating In. She also co-authored Wisdom Presents, a Taiwanese American cookbook. Sarah Leung is co-founder of The Works of Life, a beloved multi-generational recipe blog that has become one of the most trusted sources of Chinese recipes online. Her family's debut cookbook, The Works of Life, Recipes to Know and Love from a Chinese American Family, was a New York Times bestseller, James Beard Award nominee, and IACP Award finalist. Clarissa Wei is a Taiwanese American journalist and cookbook author. Her debut book, Made in Taiwan, is a celebration of the island nation she calls home. It received 2024 IACP Julia Child First Book Award and was a finalist for the James Beard Award for Best International Cookbook. Her second cookbook on postpartum recovery food will be published by Norton in 2026. Michelle T. King, our moderator tonight, is Associate Professor of History at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, specializing in Chinese gender and food history. Her latest book, Chop, Fry, Watch, Learn, Fu Pei Mei and the Making of Modern Chinese Food, was named one of the New York Times 100 Notable Books of 2024. If you enjoyed tonight's program, we encourage you to explore our upcoming events on MOCA's website and social media. We also invite you to consider supporting MOCA. Your generosity helps us continue creating programs that celebrate, inspire, and uplift diverse communities. Donations can be made at mocanyc.org. And please feel free to submit questions at any time using the Q&A feature. And note that tonight's event is being recorded and will be available on MOCA's YouTube channel. If you would like to purchase their cookbooks, we encourage you to support your local independent bookstores or visit bookshop.org. And now, without further ado, I will hand things over to Professor King to begin the conversation. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Ifan, for that lovely introduction. And I want to thank MOCA as well for sponsoring tonight's panel discussion. I threw this together with the idea, and I gave it the title of Tiger Mom's Cooking. And I love that Kathy wrote in one of her posts, what the heck is a tiger mom in the kitchen? So I thought I'd explain like why, of course, it's very tongue-in-cheek, what that meant and what that means to me and why I wanted to have this particular discussion. Um, for me, I think, when I, just as my children were still very, very young and I was thinking about, cooking for them, that's how I got started writing my book on Fu Pei Mei because I wanted to find easy Chinese recipes. I happen to have Fu Pei Mei's cookbook on my shelf, and that sent me down this other path. But the impetus was really, I want to cook Chinese food for my kids and I want them to eat Chinese food. It's really important to me. And as I was doing research for my book, I asked a lot of second generation moms, like, is it important to you? Is this just me and my own brand of crazy? Or is it like something that lots of different, not just Asian Americans, but, lots of different people might share that they really want their kids to eat the foods that they grew up with, and if that matters and why. So when I asked people, I got a lot of different kinds of responses. Some were like, feed them some fish sticks and call it a day. And some days may be like that, and others were like, there were very few that were very, 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 maybe as crazy about it as I felt at the time. But anyway, so I thought I wanted to gather all of these wonderful cookbook authors together, and recent moms. All of them gave birth within the last 2 years to their first child. And I really wanted to have this conversation about motherhood and about Chinese and Taiwanese identity and how those things intermesh or interact. So, my first question is the one that I'm dying to know. Does it matter to you all? I mean, your kids are still just in the like hand food phase, so they're getting started. But, how important is it to you, and to what lengths do you feel like you need to go to ensure that, or do you? Like I thought to myself, I don't want to raise a kid who won't eat baozi or won't eat noodles or this is gross or whatever. I want you to eat everything. So, how important is that to all of you? Whoever wants to start.
I guess I'll answer. It's very important to me. I would say that I feel very similar to how you felt, Michelle, where I mean, I think a big part of why we started the Walks of Life was that I kind of realized like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I loved cooking, but I didn't know how to make a lot of the food that I grew up eating. And I saw that as a problem. Because I wanted to make it for myself and also make it for my future kids. And like I would have felt that there would have been something missing, I think, in my future children's food education if I was not able to make those dishes that my parents made for me growing up. So yeah, I'll let somebody else answer, but long story short, very important.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with you, Sarah. And I also wanted to cook all kinds of food, but especially, the foods of my heritage when I was growing up. I mean, I also like started a blog in my late 20s or so to, explore all these foods and learn how to cook just better in general. So I definitely relate to you there, Sarah. I think about it like, I hope that I'm exposing my child to all kinds of food. But it is particularly important to me, I think, for him to appreciate and, get exposed to the foods of my Taiwanese Chinese heritage. Because one thing that I wasn't raised with was language skills, but I was raised with a lot of appreciation for Chinese cooking and Taiwanese food. So that's what I'd like to pass on as well.
My situation is a little bit reverse from everyone because I gave birth to my son in Taiwan, and I live in Taiwan full time, even though I was myself was born and raised in the States. I'm Taiwanese American. So from the very get-go, my son has been fed Taiwanese food. So we kind of are doing an opposite thing where like he's eating Western food at home because we're trying to expose him to that side of the culture. And with that said, we do try to make sure he has sort of a balance of so he understands that he has the American side. My husband is Swedish, so he's in touch with both of his cultures. But it is weird, not weird, but like it's a privilege to be in Taiwan, and he goes to daycare and his food is like congee and like noodles and baos and all of that. And I feel like I'm lucky in that I don't have to think about educating him about Taiwanese food or Chinese food because we are here.
Yeah, I wonder too, about, Sarah and Kathy, you mentioned like wanting to start and embark on this particular journey because although I had that initial inspiration, I am still not much farther on my journey of becoming a better home cook. And one of the great ironies I found in writing my book about Fu Pei Mei was that although I was writing and reading all the time about food, I did not have time to cook for my own kids very well or very much or very often or anything. So I'm wondering, as for all of you as cookbook authors, do you feel any kind of like additional pressure to sort of perform your job or whatever on a daily basis for your families, or is this just something like, just kind of you do as most other working moms do, just catch as catch can, and some days it happens and some days it doesn't. I'm just really curious how you feel like, how you felt along that particular journey. Because I feel like I'm still in the phase of like, I'm not a very good home cook, despite my vast, bookshelves full of all of your cookbooks I have here, with a bunch of other ones. Like, I'm still sort of like, it's still not natural to me in the way that I think it was for my parents. So anyway, I'm curious to know what you all think. Clarissa, do you want to go first, and we'll go backwards this time?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just relying on easy things I can defrost. So right before I gave birth to my son, we bought a giant chest freezer and we put it in our garage and we loaded it up with things. And one of my go-tos is frozen dumplings. I live in Taiwan. There are thousands of different frozen dumpling brands. So my son is very particular. He found this like cilantro dumpling that he loves from the local grocery store. So we stock up on that. And if we're ever in a pinch, like that's what we give him. But I feel like with most moms, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. It just so much happens at once. And for me, like really trying to figure out his food wasn't necessarily a priority versus just trying to survive and get through the day and not feel like breaking down and crying. And it was a gradual process. Now that all of our sons are a little bit older, I think I personally have figured out what he likes. And dumplings to me is the perfect food because there is carbs, there's protein, and there's a little bit of vegetables in there, and that with like boiled carrots on the side, best thing ever. Like we'll boil dumplings, put it in a Tupperware and take it to the zoo or bring it everywhere we go.
Cathy?
Side note, I also love dumplings and love having it in my freezer. And I just tried to give some to my son. He's 1.5, and he's very much like in a phase where he likes something one day and not the other day for no rhyme or reason, apparently. So it just seems ironic because I'm like, I'm making this perfect, like yummy food that everyone loves. And then he's like, nah, nah. So anyway, that was funny. Didn't go too well tonight. But yeah, to answer your question, Michelle, I think that I'd have to back up and say like my interest in cooking sort of preceded my cookbooks. So I think that cookbooks, it's hard to write cookbooks. I find that the hard part. And the cooking is like I don't know, it's the fun part for me at least. I enjoy cooking. I don't have too many, and I don't mind taking a little time sometimes to make something and then freeze it ahead of time, or throw something together quickly. And I'm more sort of improvisational, like, so that's what I kind of watched my mom do, is to throw together X protein and X vegetable into a stir fry and cook some rice and call it a day. So I won't really follow too many recipes, like, or I will sort of in the back of my head, but like improvise from there. So I don't know. I don't think I hold myself to like cookbook standards. Actually, doing the cookbook that's like where I'm like, I gotta get this right. Whereas cooking is like, whatever.
Yeah, I hear that. I think the cookbooks, like writing cookbooks is so hard. And just making sure that each recipe is perfect is hard. But I think for me, I mean, maybe I'm like the most like insane of us all, but I do like a lot of pre-planning at the beginning of the week. I wouldn't say that I put pressure on myself per se, but I do try to cook at least 5 nights a week. And what I found is that so my son is at home right now, like we're starting daycare soonish, but he's still at home. He's also 18 months. And so like I'm kind of like with him throughout the day, and it's almost like the sort of like flexibility of like my career of being a cookbook author and blogger has like led me down this path of like being much more sort of like involved into his day to day. Every single meal I prepare, or my husband prepares. So for me, I've just felt like I really need to stay organized. So at the beginning of the week, I just like make like the week's food plan, and I basically stick to that plan. I like food shop for it, and I'm like, okay, like now on the day, like I don't have to think about it. I just like look at the like Tuesday breakfast is this, and like it just like lets me just like do it, and I don't have to think about it. But yeah, I mean, I guess like my parents kind of, they cooked dinner most nights. They were both working, and like I don't know how they did it, to be honest. Like I have like through this experience of having my first child, like I just have so much more respect for my parents and what they did in raising us. And they had us really young. And they both worked full time, and they both managed to like cook dinner most nights. Like we rarely ate out. So in some ways, I guess I'm just like, I hope to like, I aspire to do what they did, which was like make a really like a decent home cooked meal every night. Um, and yeah, like sometimes it is just like, I don't know, like stir fried chives with like eggs, and it's just like, and some rice and like whatever. And it's fast, and it's like not a big lift, but it's like it's at least something that I made. So, but, and also just like a quick note on the dumplings is that I made fresh, I made like homemade dumplings like last week, and Ethan just like carefully picked out all of the filling and then only ate the wrapper. And I was like, I can't even be mad at him because I did the same thing as a child.
That's really great. Well, Sarah, you brought up another question that that I really thought about a lot was, after having my own kids and trying to cook for them, not 5 days a week, or yeah, not certainly not 5 days a week, but the realizing how effortless that my parents made it seem. We never went out to eat, hardly ever. Going out to Pizza Hut or whatever once a year or something seemed like a big deal, or Ponderosa or whatever it was. Um, but how has your experience of parenting made you rethink? Sarah has already alluded to that. Rethink kind of how you were raised and how you ate growing up, and what you want to emulate or what you might want to do differently. I would aspire to what my parents did, but I just don't know how it's possible. Like, I literally can't make it happen. I'm not nearly as organized. And I will tell you, Sarah, I will lay a plan and it doesn't happen. I'll be like, I really don't feel like cooking that thing that I said I would cook. And, the best laid plans, I guess. So Clarissa and Cathy, what do you think? How does this parenthood made you rethink your own kind of upbringing and your own food ways when you were growing up? Cathy, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about that. Thinking about it a lot just because I have a son now. And I always like knew I benefited. My mother cooked all the time, but my dad also liked to cook just for fun on the weekend, just like a passion projects of a beef bourguignon or something like that, or a chili. And he still does. So, but I feel very grateful because they both instilled that sort of joy, and they weren't like stressed. It was like for something they enjoyed. One thing I'm kind of amazed at is that how did they keep me safe? Because like I remember just always being around the kitchen and watching what they do. And now with Ziggy, my little one, like he's just trying to open drawers, he's trying to grab things from the stove, and I'm like, danger, danger everywhere. So I'm like, how did I come out of this okay? I mean, granted, he's very small right now, but yeah, it makes me appreciate. You think about all these little things too. It's like, wait, was I standing on a stool? Do I need to get a stool? Like, so, yeah.
Yeah, sort of echoing that. My mom didn't know how to cook before she got married, and after she got married, she took some sort of like homemaking course in Taiwan where they like taught her the basics. And when she moved to the States, I remember for my whole childhood, she would have this like multi-course family meal. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. It was like at least a soup, at least a vegetable, a carb was usually just plain white rice, but there was protein and like sometimes seafood. And I do cook a lot at home. Even though we live in Taiwan, most young people in Taiwan don't cook anymore, but we try to cook to keep things balanced. But there's no way I can whip up like 6 different elements. And even if I did, I don't think my son would want to eat all of those elements at all. So yeah, in retrospect, it really is impressive, like how my mom managed to whip up so many dishes in this like bid to give us a balanced meal. And I think that's what's the hardest about being a mom, like trying to make sure I'm giving him a balanced meal that's not just like carbs and protein, which I think is the easiest to give to a small little baby, because vegetables are still a little bit difficult with the texture and yeah, taste.
And I'm also wondering, like, how you feel motherhood and your sense of your own identity, either your Chinese or Taiwanese identity, how do these two things, do you think, affect each other? Like, has becoming a mom affected your own experience or sense of your Chinese or Taiwanese identity? And likewise, has your Chinese or Taiwanese identity affected your experience or sense of motherhood? Chinese mom, Taiwanese mom. Now you are one. What do you think? Sarah, do you want to jump in?
Um, I honestly don't necessarily, I don't know. I guess I don't really think that it necessarily colored my sense of what motherhood is necessarily, other than, um, I don't know, I guess just like feeling more, I guess, appreciative of my own mom and my own parents and like both of my parents cooked. And like, growing up, like I went to a lot of friends' houses for dinner, and it was kind of a different vibe, like it was we ordered pizza, and like I tell this story in the cookbook, but it was like I went to a friend's house, and it was like the dinner was like a glass of milk, a slice of pizza, and a Centrum vitamin. And so like I guess like, and that's fine. Like I'm not like, I enjoyed the pizza and I enjoyed the milk and I ate the vitamin. I took the vitamin. It was fine. But I mean, I think like this sort of like, I do feel like I felt grateful growing up that there was like this appreciation for food preparation and like just like caring about what you put on the table. And like, I don't know, I guess like for me, it definitely like being Chinese and being like, I feel like, I mean, I don't know, like you guys can kind of give your own perspective, but I feel like, at least in my experience, Chinese people like care a lot about food and like are really very particular about it, and very critical as well. Like, like I think that it's like, oh, like that's not like it. Our thing growing up was like we eat the food and then we criticize the food. Like that's just like what we would do. And so I do feel like there's this sense of like, I don't know, like pride in like cooking a really good meal. And I don't know, like I don't necessarily think like in other aspects, like other than food, if I had like a particular, I don't know, different perspective as a Chinese mom, other than I guess perhaps like the postpartum experience, which I know Clarissa, you can speak a lot to as well. But like, I do think that when I first gave birth, that this sort of emphasis on like me and like my like sort of like need to rest and recuperate in addition to like caring for the baby was like a big deal. Like I think that that really helped me in that first like couple months, because it was really hard. And to feel like I was also being cared for, like my mom was like making and delivering like soups and like meals, and like she made me drink this like horrible Chinese medicine, but like, just being forced to drink that medicine was in a way just like this sense of like, okay, you need to do something for yourself as well. Like it's not just about the baby. So that I felt was really valuable in those early months.
Clarissa, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sort of echoing that note on postpartum. I mean, again, my experience is weird because I reverse immigrated to the land where my parents grew up. So if anything, I feel like, even though I'm ethnically Taiwanese, I speak Chinese. A lot of my like American ideals sort of clash with people here, and people will be like, "Oh, you're just doing this because you're American." So, it has been a culture shock, but in a reverse way here. But on the postpartum experience, that's when I really felt like I was embracing that like traditional Taiwanese Chinese identity and culture. But it was still like in Taiwan, it's taken to an extreme where the mom is so centered that at a lot of, so just for context, the vast majority of Taiwanese women will check into a postpartum hotel or hire a nanny after they give birth. This is not paid for by insurance. Most people will save 30% of their annual salary just for this. And that's how much emphasis there is on maternal recovery. And so when I was at this hotel, I was actively encouraged to sleep through the night and not have my baby next to me, or I was actively encouraged to just stay in the room and watch Netflix and like wheel him to the nurses and have the nurses take care of him for a full month, which on paper, as an American, it sounded great. But once I was in it, I was like, wait, I'm really losing so much of this relationship with my kid and like bonding and really figuring out what it means to be a mother, because in traditional Taiwanese identity is so much of it, you're so focused on the mom that again, you lose that relationship. So it's been a lot of my life here is like coming to terms with what I romanticized as an American and like living through it and being like, okay, there are pros and cons to both cultures and trying to figure out where I stand in it. So that's been a really interesting journey.
That is super interesting, Clarissa. Gosh, am I not recovered yet? I didn't spend a month being pampered. I don't know. Well, so I feel like I saw, so just to back up, my mom came to the United States from Taiwan when she was like 27 or so, and then like had me soon after. So she was fairly fresh to discovering, you know, the ways of like America. I think even growing up, you know, she would ask me like, and still to this day, how to say certain words, but like, you know, and I think I watched her learn to cook more American foods and like really appreciate that as we went along. So I know what that looks like. I know what it looks like, I guess, to be an immigrant and learning sort of American culinary styles and blending that with your own. And now as a half Chinese, Taiwanese American who was born and raised where basically I still am in the New York City metro area. I don't know what that, yeah, I don't know what that looks like, you know, so I'm just sort of making up that identity. I mean, I guess as a mom now, not that I wasn't, you know, before. But yeah, I think that it's interesting because I don't know what motherhood from that angle looks like. So I guess as we're, you know, maybe I'll have a story to tell about that, but we'll see.
I also wonder, you know, all of you are working moms, and I wonder how you all are juggling we were talking about that a little before the webinar started, just how are you managing the vaunted work-life balance? What are your own, do you have any particular, um, I don't know, just things that you've learned just in the past, you know, 2 years or 18 months of being a mom that you feel like has really helped you? Um, I always wonder about other parents and like, how do they do it? I see other colleagues or other, you know, I just think they look like they're making it happen. Why is every day such a struggle for me? I'm curious to know, like, and at each stage of your children's lives, they will have different kinds of struggles. Like that's the thing. It's like it just never ends. It's just different. They just change. So how are you all handling, do you think, that work-life balance as working moms? I don't know, Sarah, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I I mean, I have the luxury of like being my own boss and like doing my own thing. And I feel like at the same time, like that's great. And I was able to spend a lot of time with my son in his first year. I was basically his primary caregiver for the first year. Um, and but it was tough. I mean, it's really hard. I don't I mean, in some ways, I'm like, maybe it would have been better if I had just a full-time, regular 9 to 5 job and I had put him in daycare and I would have like, I would have felt like there was this like separation between work and home. But as it was just like, trying to get like an hour's work done during a nap, but then he would only sleep for 30 minutes. And then you're just like, oh, like, okay, I have to go get him now. And like, it was just like, it was a real struggle. And I mean, I did work in like probably like started working like when he was 6 months old. Like I took a really long maternity leave, which we had prepared for before he was born, where we just like front loaded a lot of content and like kind of scheduled it and had it ready to go. But yeah, after that dried up, it was really tough to try to like, I would take him to my parents' house and we would try to like, photograph some recipes and like cook some recipes. And like, it was just like, I would have be holding him and like trying to like take pictures. Like, it was just really hard. And I, I think, what have I learned? I've basically just learned that I don't know. It's just tough. It's as hard as everyone says it is. But also fun. I mean, like I really enjoyed that first year of being with him and like seeing him like develop and grow in that first year and being like really present for it the whole time. So I'm like both grateful and also like, oh man, it was tough. And now, I mean, we're in a stage where we are lucky enough to have a nanny coming in 4 days a week. That's the only way I'm able to like get work done. I thought that I would be able to kind of do it like on the side, like, oh, he's like independent play and I'm like doing this thing. It's like not a thing. So we couldn't get into any daycares because we were like too late to that game. So we're like, okay, I guess we need to hire someone. And so that's what we've been doing for the last several months and hopefully starting daycare in a little bit. But yeah, the work-life balance is tough, even for somebody with like a purported like the ideal situation of being totally flexible. I think that like being your own boss, it's like great, you can be flexible, but at the same time, it's like your own business that's suffering because you're not working on it. So it feels like that feels tough too. So
Clarissa, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sort of echoing that. I'm similar to Sarah in that I'm my own boss. I'm a freelance writer and journalist. And part of the reason why I'm in Taiwan is because it's just easier to find help without breaking the bank and feeling like you have to take a loan out to have childcare. But in the first year of my son's life, me and my husband, who also works from home, we took care of him at home because we thought that was important. And nannies are, you can pay by hour and they're really affordable. So we had one come over just for a couple hours, 2 days, at most 3 days a week. But again, like I barely got any work done, but I was writing this postpartum cookbook or developing recipes. So in a way, the theme kind of fit the moment of my life. But it was still really difficult, as you other ladies know, to develop recipes while taking care of a baby. But my husband did a lot of the caretaking, and then we put him into daycare in March, which has been such an entire game changer. I'm so grateful for daycare. But even then, like compared to my first cookbook, which I wrote without a baby, to now that I've been writing this, I started this postpartum cookbook basically a couple months after he was born. Like this process of writing a cookbook while having a tiny baby is so hard, because writing a cookbook is like giving birth and nurturing a baby, and having both at the same time. I needed more time to submit my manuscript, but like B, it feels really difficult to like concentrate, but at the same time, this experience informs what I want to put in my cookbook because my audience is for new moms. So I feel like I've been living a little bit of um, a meta life for the last year. But thankfully, I'm almost done with my manuscript. I'm currently doing my photo shoot right now. I have to leave soon and we're on a 2-week photo shoot. But yeah, if it was any other topic, I don't think I would be able to do it. But because my topic is distinctly related to early motherhood, it makes sense. But I still think I am dumb for taking this on his first year of life because it's been really, really hard.
Yeah, wow, kudos. That's pretty amazing that you're almost done too, because that was quick. That was really quick. I mean,
time flies, right?
yeah, but still, they call it a book baby because it, for a reason. It takes a lot out of you, so I can totally understand that. Yeah, so I mean, I have the luxury of I work from home. I have a full-time job in advertising, and I also do freelance writing and cookbook stuff, and I do teaching as well. So I have a little bit of everything. I sometimes go, you know, into an office sometimes if need be, or like go, out and about to interview people. So yeah, I mean, I have fortunately a daycare that is like a block away that Ziggy has been going to for the last almost a year now. So, and that's been really working out well. And one thing I will say that I have found in terms of like cooking hacks, to make working sort of more working and cooking more agreeable to one another, which I never used to do, is prep a mise en place to have like this quick fire dinner later. And I was almost like laughing the other day because like I put things into these like little bowls that you might see like on a cooking show, and they go like, and a cup of chopped onion here and a cup of like, diced carrot. And here's my minced garlic in there. And I'm like, I used to never do that. And I'm like, who does that? Who wants to like wash a bunch of little bowls? But now I'm like, that's me now. It's really helpful.
And what do you all think about like at kind of looking forward? What are the things that you hope to impart to your child through food? What are the things that you're the values or the ideas, or what is it you're hoping your child will get beyond just simple nurturing through, I mean, sustenance? What are you hoping your child will receive from you through your cooking for him?
I mean, I can say already it seems like Ziggy is very interested in watching cooking, even though he doesn't always eat everything. And I think that that's fun. So hopefully he will enjoy learning one day how to cook for himself, maybe.
Yeah, for me, because I live in Taiwan, I'm American, my husband is Swedish. I think through food we're teaching, our kid has 3 languages he's learning, not on purpose, but because it's just our background. I think through food, we want him to know about the different aspects of his culture, right? Even though he's in Taiwan with me as an American, we give him like Swedish food and like teach him the Swedish word for the food. So to learn about his different facets of identity through different dishes. And whenever we travel to Sweden, we're eating like very Swedish dishes. In Taiwan, we obviously just eat more Taiwanese food because of the ingredients. We haven't really been to the States yet, but because we're such a multicultural family, we really do use food as a way for him to understand the different facets of his identity, because it can be kind of confusing, and even more confusing for him here in Taiwan, because Taiwan is a very ethnically homogenous society. So he looks different and is already being treated differently, and not necessarily a good way, because he looks different than the other kids. And he can't really understand anything right now, but through food, we're trying to help him understand that he has these different parts of him, and that it's a good thing. And so far he's been eating like a champ. Like he eats so much, it's a little bit scary. He eats 6 dumplings in one sitting, which scares me because he's only 20 months old.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think just to echo that, my husband is not Chinese, so I agree that like I think that the the food sort of helps like translate like those two different sides or those two different parts of his identity, or I hope it will. I just to add, I think also for me growing up, like food was sort of this like medium through which there were these like through which I like developed relationships with like older generations, right? It was like with my parents and with my grandparents, like learning how to growing up, I like Cathy, I also did not grow up with language. I eventually did learn. My Chinese got decent in college, but growing up, I had no idea what anyone was saying. So I feel like that sort of like experience of just like of making dumplings with my grandmother, like that was like our thing and like our relationship. Um, and you know, my parents do speak English and they have a close relationship with Ethan, but I think that like just like food is like an activity. It's like kind of like or preparing food together. I think it's like I just want to impart that like sense of like I guess like collectivism or like that like sense of like family and like being together and like traditions that exist around food, around like the Chinese holidays and I guess the Jewish holidays on my parents or on my husband's side. So yeah, I guess like food like as part of like a wider tradition, like I'm hoping to sort of like maintain that with Ethan.
I'm just recalling, Sarah, as you're speaking, the one of the last times my father and mom came to visit before my father passed away, they made zongzi for us and argued like crazy about the right way to do it. Everyone had an opinion, like it was crazy, but that's just what I associate with the care you put into doing it, doing it right, or everybody has their opinion about what's right. And yeah, that to me was a huge motivation in thinking about food, and Chinese food is really sharing with people how much family is part of the food experience. It's not just the dishes you eat, it's how you eat it, who you eat it with. So at this point, I want to open up to questions from the audience. So feel free to put questions into your chat box if anyone has any questions. We do have several different comments here, which I'll read. I don't know if everyone can see them or not. S. Lowe says, when my daughter was growing in the mid-70s, she always had great Cantonese cooked dinners because aunties and uncles were great cooks. Too bad my niece and I didn't learn the Chinese cooking techniques from the aunties. Luckily, my daughter loved cooking and made roast pork belly, roast duck, Buddhist vegetarian delights, as well as eating out at great Chinese restaurants in the San Francisco Bay Area. She can cook chicken pie, crab cake, Spanish paella, Thai roast salad, Vietnamese pho. She's the gourmet cook in the family now. Thank goodness she's got lots of Asian cookbooks to refer to. Whenever she posts on Facebooks, every comment is, please invite me to dinner. Her Caucasian husband and in-laws love her cooking. As a single mom working full-time, I cooked simple Chinese rice plate dinners, spaghetti, noodle soups, chicken curry, nothing like my daughter's elaborate and creative and impressive dishes. So it's interesting, like that the cooking gene like skips one, right? As the mom is saying that her daughter cooks better than she does, which I think is a really interesting observation. Another comment, first generation Taiwanese, Chinese American from New York City to Boston, grew up on my mom's cooking, but I didn't get to learn from her growing up. I was told to go study rather than work in the kitchen. Thankfully, I did learn a few recipes, and one of them, a tofu and fish ball soup made with broth from boiled chicken, remains a favorite with my kids. So there again, like this particular dish kind of being passed down. Another comment, the funny thing is when my girls were toddlers, we were told by Caucasian friends and neighbors to prepare bland, flavorless, pureed foods, which the kids hated. One night they fought a bland poached chicken that I had made. I made a chicken broccoli black bean stir fry for myself, which the girls proceeded to ask for and gobble up. It's important to me to cook Chinese and Taiwanese dishes, though I've learned from Fuchsia Dunlop in America's Test Kitchen and Milk Street and Walks of Life and Cathy and Clarissa, etc. So you guys are doing a huge service to lots of people in this community just to say, here's how you can achieve some of those tastes that you recognize from your childhood. We have a question of what are your sons eating now? Are they different from what you liked as a child, if you can remember back that far, or if you remember what your parents told you? What are your kids eating now?
So my parents told me that, I mean, I was born in 1990. So I was, oh my gosh, it's bedtime. So I grew up in 1990, and at the time, my parents were basically like, the thing to do was to buy Gerber baby food and like feed that to your kid. So that's what they did. And I guess they just kind of gradually like introduced like Chinese food. Like my mom said that she would, like if they had soup at dinner, she would like mix a little bit of like cooked white rice into it and then feed us like the soup with the rice. Or, she would take like sauce from like a braised pork belly and like mix that with rice and feed it to us and stuff like that. Um, and in my experience, like I guess I went like the baby-led weaning route, where basically your baby just eats mostly what you eat, and you kind of just serve it in an age-appropriate way. So honestly, like my parents and me, I mean, we were all like shocked at like the kinds of things that Ethan was eating at like a pretty young age. Like he was eating mackerel, he was eating daikon radish, he was eating like, I mean, you're not supposed to feed them too much seaweed, but he was like willingly eating like kombu. Like I was like, oh wow, this is like I don't even like kombu that much, but he was just eating it. So um but I will say that around like 15 months, he started to like get pickier, and he was like, oh wait, like no, like pasta and like rice and cheese and like, these things are better than daikon radish. Um, so I would say that he's a little bit more discerning now, but he still does eat like quite a variety of things. I find that if I like with vegetables and things like that, if I just like chop it really, if I change the texture of the vegetable by like just chopping it super finely and like mixing it into something else, like if I mix, so oddly enough, one of my son's favorite things is this like vegetable mushu dish that we have on our website. And like I had not made that recipe in years. But I was like, oh, let me try it. Like, let's whatever. And I made it one night and he just like gobbled it. He loved it. And it has shiitake mushrooms, it has celery in it, it has carrots, it has like all this stuff. And I found that if I just like chopped it really fine and like mixed it into some rice and then like I gave him a little bit of like the pancake with like a little hoisin sauce on the side. He just loves it. So it's like one of the things, like if I feel like he hasn't had enough vegetables lately, I'll just make that. Um, so yeah, I would say that at the 18-month mark, he's definitely like loves pasta, loves cheese, likes plain rice. But there's certain things where if I just sort of doctor the food a little bit or change the texture by chopping it or doing like a little bit of that kind of altering to it, he'll eat still a decent variety of things.
Clarissa, do you want to?
Yeah, so for me, I don't know if like taste buds are inherited, but my son is exactly like my husband, which is kind of scary. So like I really like more like softer foods that don't, Taiwanese food is very subtle. My husband likes very like saucy meat and potatoes and cheese, which is like exactly like my son. So I realized from a very early age to please my son, I just have to cook for him like I'm cooking for my husband, but like make it smaller pieces. So we'll do things like braised minced pork belly, which is like a very popular Taiwanese dish, very saucy, or like sesame noodles, or like chicken curries, or things that are a little bit like heavier and more palatable to quote Westerners, which is again very frustrating because we are in Taiwan. But then he also loves like cheesy things, but we recently found out he's allergic to milk products, so that's kind of been difficult. And then at daycare, they feed him like congee and stir fried noodles and like tropical fruit because we have a ton of that. I don't know what daycare is like in the States, but yeah, in Taiwan, it's like they give you a menu every single month and it's like super balanced and they have fruit. So they like really take care of, I feel like he gets like one very balanced meal during the day. And then at dinner, we can sort of go a little bit more like flavorful or yeah, not super healthy, but that's okay for me.
Kathy, you got
Oh,
got
Ziggy, what do you eat? Well, I'm so jealous because Ziggy is not that good of an eater just yet. He's definitely more of like a hit or miss picky eater. But okay. Can you go to Dada? Okay. Sorry. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Whoops. Well, he does go to daycare and he eats we have home cooked food from the like basically his daycare is run by a bunch of Dominican ladies, and so he eats a lot of like beans, rice, chopped vegetables and ground meat mixtures. So I find that he's really good at eating rice, but when it comes to like textures, he doesn't like to chew on that many things. So I'm always trying to find something soft like meatballs. I was actually looking at the Walks of Life recipe for lion's head meatballs because I thought that would be fun because I've done all kinds of meatballs. So I was like, let me just continue on this meatball kick. So that's been working out well. But it's just very difficult right now. So I hope that he'll get more adventurous soon.
They say you have to just keep offering a kid the food, 7 or 8 times to get them to actually want to try it. So
Yeah,
keep
but
getting-
also just some days he'll like something and then not the other for just, I don't know, it's a mood thing.
yeah.
I don't know.
I do have one more question here. I guess I should answer this. Someone says, I wish there was an English translation of Fupe Makes cookbooks when I was raising my daughter. Please share your favorite recipes. So there actually Fupe May's major cookbook series is bilingual. Unfortunately, they're out of print, but you can find sometimes used editions of her cookbooks, and they have reissued in Taiwan. They've reissued editions of Fupe May's cookbooks. But I don't know, Clarissa, I don't know if they're actually bilingual in Taiwan. Maybe they're now just Chinese. I'm not really sure. But I think we're drawing to a close. I want to make sure we end right on time because all of our panelists need to do bedtime or go off to do their work for Clarissa. So I want to thank everyone for joining. And I wanted to share one last slide before we go, just so everyone knows what we're here for, what we're all about. This is just a little picture of all the children of the panelists here. So I want to thank everyone for joining for a wonderful conversation. Really enjoyed talking with all of you about motherhood and identity. So hope this inspires the parents out there to, throw a few more things, throw a few more vegetables into that stir fry to try to get their kids to eat different things. So thank you so much for everyone for joining tonight.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
us.
guys.
Yeah, thanks
It was
everyone.
fun.